Today is August 11th, 2024, and welcome to the 401st episode of the Video Games podcast. Here on this show, I talk about any game at all, including new stuff, old stuff, and anything in between. My name is Brad Galloway. I'm the one-man host of this show, and I'm also the editor of GameCritics.com, a website that uses the full range of review scores from 0 to 10, while also offering full accessibility information on every review we publish. Welcome. Thanks for joining me today. I am glad you're here. As usual, going to kick things off with housekeeping, where I discuss tidbits, news items, industry happenings, and basically anything randomly game adjacent that's caught my eye in the last 7 days. Not a lot going on this week, just a couple of quick items. First up, Helldivers 2. If you listen to the show, you know I'm a fan. I guess I'm a fan. I think I'm becoming less of a fan, but I'm still a fan. Playing it less than I was, but always hoping for the game to do better. It's been kind of a rocky road, even though it was really successful. Big launch, lots of troubles at launch, bugs, connection problems, all sorts of issues, but like they keep bouncing back because the gameplay is really addictive. Some great team-based action there. And I think that things were kind of starting to stall out. They had lost some players and were kind of needing to jazz things up a little bit. But the Helldivers 2 team just can't really seem to get it right. It's really funny because, well, I guess not funny. Funny is not the right word, but maybe kind of sad, maybe. Opposite of funny. Because the players are pretty vocal. And I know this is hard. I don't mean to be like armchair developer or anything, but I keep hearing the same feedback from players over and over and over, and it's weird to me that the development team just does not want to follow it. Case in point, they launched they said it was a giant update called the Escalation of Freedom. Apparently, it was supposed to be the biggest update to the game to date. Biggest update to date. That seems like a weird thing to say, but that's what it was. There was a developer video that came out. They were hyping it up for like 2 weeks before it dropped, and everybody's getting kind of excited about it. They said there was going to be lots of surprises, and the things that they did mention was that an enemy type was coming into the game from Helldivers 1. They were going to redo the lighting on one of the levels to make it look like a new level, even though it was already in the game. Some balance patches and a couple new missions. I think 2 new mission types. So it didn't seem like a lot, but they were like, "Oh, there's more coming. There's more coming." And so we all kind of got hyped about it. They were also dropping another battle pass 2 days after the update went up, and it was fire focused. And if you don't know Helldivers 2, using the flame weapons is actually pretty good, or used to be pretty good. They were some of the most powerful weapons, especially if you're going up against the bug faction. So people were excited about having a bunch of new flamethrowers and fire resistant armor, which strangely had never been in the game until this point. So you could like easily get crisped by your own weapons and stuff like that. So the Escalation of Freedom dropped, and it was just like this giant thud. I think one of the big problems is that the additions didn't really feel very noticeable. The 2 mission types, I mean, great, that's fine. Always happy to get new mission types. But it didn't really bring a lot new. The new enemy type spawns way too much, and they're way too tough. And they can also juggle you to death. So you can't even get up, like you're stun locked essentially, which is never a good time. So none of that was great. But the biggest problem was that they pre-nerfed a lot of the flame stuff, which is what people were excited about. So they talked about, hey, the new battle pass is all about fire, and here's these weapons and 3 different flamethrowers and all this stuff. And so people got psyched, and then someone leaked ahead of time that a week before they were going to drop it, they're like, oh, we need to nerf all this stuff because we don't want it to be too strong. So everybody in the community got mad. Everybody just feels like the developers don't understand what's going on. And I kind of agree with them. I know that gamers have the reputation for being whiny piss babies, and we talk about stuff that we don't know about, and we complain about stuff, and we don't know what's good for us. And some of that is sometimes true to a certain extent. I'm not saying it's not. But in this particular case, I really do kind of feel like, having been a long-term fan, both of Helldivers 1 and of Helldivers 2, that the developers have some broken thinking going on. I think they are very averse to letting players have any kind of fun or even the slightest bit of advantage. All of the guns feel really underpowered. The developers said they got tired of seeing people bring the same gun to the same missions like 30% of the time, which means that people are not using other guns. And the fans keep saying it's because the other guns are terrible. We naturally gravitate towards the guns that work because we need a gun that works. Why do you keep nerfing all these things? And in fact, that's kind of true. The developers almost never give a buff to anything. They give nerfs to everything. They just nerf and nerf and nerf, and they just don't stop. And so a lot of the stuff that works, a lot of stuff that's fun, a lot of the stuff that makes you feel like you're having a successful run in a mission, like you're strong, you can fight back, that stuff just keeps getting routinely nerfed, and people are getting pissed off about it. And I am too, honestly. I don't use 90% of the guns. I like rotate between like the same 2 or 3 guns, and I don't even know how many guns are in the game. There's like a ton, and I don't use any of them because they're not good. A lot of the same stratagems that we used to use have been nerfed, and it's really frustrating, right? So the developers heard the feedback. The fans were incredibly upset again. The developers dropped a new feedback line within their Discord where you can once a week submit direct feedback talking about whatever you want to talk about. I sent in a comment and I was like, look, guys, I don't know what your deal is, but like you seem to be anti-fun. Every single time somebody likes something, you squash it. Like you routinely squash anything that we're having fun with. So I don't know why you're so hell-bent on keeping the difficulty sky high and stopping people from enjoying themselves. I just don't think they're on the right track. They've got some weird thinking. They don't seem to understand what it is that people like about the game, and it's really frustrating. I haven't played it in a couple days, and honestly, I feel like I'm kind of dropping off, which sucks because I love Helldivers. They haven't even brought out the vehicles yet, which I was excited about. We haven't even gotten to the third faction. We already have the robots and the bugs, but there's like an entirely third faction. They haven't rolled that out yet. I mean, there's tons of stuff that they could dip into to offer more content to the game. And like, you know, there's a lot left in the tank here, but the problem is just like every time we even have the slightest minute advantage, the developers roll in and stomp it out and nerf it into fucking, you know, non-existence. And it's really frustrating and disheartening, on top of the fact that they just can't get the spawn rates right. So we not only do we have weaker guns, but we have more enemies and tougher enemies than we've ever had before. And it's just not fun, guys. It's just not fun. So the escalation freedom was just a giant wet fart. And I hate to say that, but it's just true. It was built up and it ended up being like a complete nothing burger. And worse than that, it was disappointing, right? Like it nerfed a bunch of stuff, which we didn't want to nerf. So I hope that the developers listen to the feedback. I hope they get themselves back on track. I would love for the game to be fun again. It's just not really fun right now, which is just a big disappointment. So there's that. The only other piece of news or housekeeping this week is that the studio, Ready at Dawn Studios, just got closed by Meta, which is a bummer. We hadn't heard a lot from them recently, or at least I hadn't, because I don't play a lot on Meta, you know, the VR headset put out by Facebook, I believe. But Ready at Dawn had cranked out some real bangers back in the day. They were pretty prolific on the PSP, so I know I'm dating myself a little bit. But they put out Daxter, which was a good game. They put out the God of War games on PSP, which were all pretty good. They put out the Order 1886, which maybe wasn't the greatest, but it was interesting, that's for sure. So I thought they had a lot of potential, especially in the handheld field. They really understood the platform well, and I was looking forward to more from them, but they got bought out by Meta, and they pivoted towards doing VR stuff. And to be frank, I haven't played any of their stuff. I think they had a series called Echo. I'm not sure exactly what it was, but I'm guessing just another first-person VR shooter, because what else is on VR helmets? But they just got closed, and that's a bummer. So anyway, I was a fan, hadn't been a fan for a while, but still was a fan from back in the day. And I wish all the people at Ready at Dawn the best of luck. I hope they can find new jobs and land on their feet. And enough with the studio closures already, people. Can we just please stop this? And let's get some stability for our people in the field. All right, that is it for the housekeeping. Not a lot this week, like I said, but before I get to the main portion of the show, just a quick reminder, you can help support this very podcast, the one you're listening to right now in real time, by going to patreon.com/the So Videogames podcast. Every little bit helps with the cost of hosting. Even $1 is a big help. Absolutely. And of course, huge thanks to all of our Patreon supporters who are already putting their money where their ears is. Love you all. Thank you very much. And a big special shout out to our newest subscriber, Cleveland Cummings, who just jumped aboard. Thank you very much, Cleveland. Really appreciate that. Hope you enjoy the show. Also, there is a heads up that there is a So Videogames Discord, which any listeners welcome to join free of charge. If you want to join up and continue this conversation, just shoot me an email and I'll send you the details. And also, just an asterisk really quick. I should have mentioned this at the top of the show, although I did put out a special episode right before this one. But in case you missed it, just a heads up that for the time being, you will be seeing old episodes of the original GameCritics.com podcast in this feed. I did put out a disclaimer, a very short, like 2-minute episode right before this one, explaining that was going to be happening. Basically, long story short, a lot of people over the years have asked what happened to the Game Critics podcast. it's still around, but for one reason or another, it got taken off of the internet and people were missing it, which makes me feel good, right? I was a part of that. And to know that people want to hear that content, even after all these years, is pretty amazing and a real honor. Super flattering as well. So anyway, we finally got around to putting those episodes back up. And the way that we're doing that is it's going to be in this very feed, in the So Video Games feed. I don't want to have a separate channel. I don't want to pay for a separate channel. So I hope that everybody who listens to this show will be very understanding and patient. If you see the Game Critics episodes popping up, and you will, feel free to just delete those if you don't want to listen to them. I just want to make sure they're available somewhere for people who want to listen to them. And if you are inclined, I mean, I don't know, maybe give them a shot. Of course, they're all really old. They're all from like 2008 onwards. And you're going to hear the cast of the original Game Critics podcast show, many of whom you might not be familiar with. But, you know, I don't know. A lot of people say they really enjoyed the shows. We had a lot of laughs. It was good times. And so if you want to see what we were up to back then, maybe give them a listen. Maybe you'll find a whole bunch of new content that you can get for free. It's ultimately going to be about 200-ish episodes or so. There's like the main show. There's Game Critics After Dark. There's a couple of special episodes. And one very special episode where the crew got together long after the show had been closed because we had a listener. Oh my gosh, I feel like a total jerk. We had a listener from the Middle East. I forget specifically which country it was, but they had emailed us directly, and they were like, "Hey man, I don't know if you guys knew this. You probably didn't, but I'm in the Middle East. My country is in the middle of a civil war, and I'm listening to your podcast. I started from episode 1, and I'm working my way forward because it kind of gets me through these dark times that I'm living right now." And we all were just like completely blown away that like this show that we had done as a lark, you know, back in the day, just being goofy, was actually being some support to anyone anywhere around the world, especially like in a civil war situation, in this dark situation that this person was in. So we got together to do a special update show to thank that person for letting us know that they were still listening, and we wanted to do a little special shout out to them as well. So that episode is in there. It's coming. So just FYI, about 200-ish episodes going to be in this feed. Delete them if you don't like them. Listen if you do. But that's what the deal is. And if you're confused, hopefully that cleared the confusion. All right, that is enough preamble. I say let's get on to the main portion of the show here. Let's do it literally right now. Folks, if you've heard the show before, you know that I like to start off with some circle backs. These are games I have talked about in the past, covered them in greater detail on previous episodes. I'm not going to get into that same level of detail now. Just wanted to circle back and kind of touch on a few things that I want to keep in the conversation, basically. So let's do that right now. Only got one this week. It's going to be Dungeons of Hinterberg. Covered it, I believe, 2 episodes ago. Circled back on it last week. Circling back on it now. Still great. Still great. I've only got 4 dungeons left, so I'm really, really close to the end. And at this point, I'm going to just pause on the game to do some of the cleanup stuff. Just as a heads up, this is a third-person action / RPG. You do like some Zelda type puzzles and dungeons. You have some very light combat, but then you go back to a real life town. The setting is that you're in real Earth, but magical dungeons have popped up. So like in Germany or Austria, I think. And so you're a lawyer who goes there for a vacation. You get sucked into the dungeons and you find out that like dungeoneering is your true calling. But then there's also a lot of slice of life stuff. You meet a lot of people. They borrowed the social system from Persona. So you can spend time with people like once a day. And so you pick and choose who you want to hang out with. And then they give you different perks based on who they are. Like maybe one guy will give you a sword when you become his best friend. Maybe one person will increase your health bar, so forth and so on. So that's really the deal. I've really been liking it a lot. As we had a discussion recently in the Gaming in the Wild forums, which is not the So Video Games forums, the Discord channel. And a quick shout out to Gaming in the Wild and all the awesome people over there. That's a great Discord. I think it costs you $1 to get in, which is $1 well spent. So shout out to those folks. But I spent a lot of time chatting with those people over there. And we were talking about Hinterberg. And I think it's really true that the combat in Hinterberg is pretty basic and standard, but nothing to write home about. But it works. Graphics, pretty standard, nothing to write home about, but it works. So like when you look at the different elements of the game on its face, you think, well, this just seems like kind of a mediocre game, but really it's kind of more than the sum of its parts. I think the combat does what it needs to do. The puzzles, I think, are surprisingly well done if you have the head for them. I know some people don't, and that's totally fine. Horses for courses. Everybody's got their own jam. But for me, I'm able to get through these puzzles pretty well. They work pretty good for my brain type, and so I like that. And I think that's fine enough, but if it wasn't for the story and the characters, I don't think this game would have stayed in the conversation. I don't think it would have the staying power that it does. The writing is really a big part of what sells it for me. And part of that is the main character, who is this lawyer, where she's very unfulfilled in her regular life, doesn't have a lot of friends, doesn't have a big social life, just works a lot. And so she comes to this village full of dungeons and kind of discovers more about herself, discovers that there's more to her than just being a lawyer. And when you talk to other people in town, you notice that same thing, right? A lot of discontent with the way that we have structured our world today, a lot of discontent with the way we live our lives, people wanting more, people wanting to feel like they're part of something bigger, just wanting to connect and have some really enriching experiences, some genuine experiences. And I think when you start having those conversations, it really gives an extra layer to the game. So while no one element of the game really stands out as being amazing, I think they're all, good enough or very good, and they come together to form something that's just really fantastic. So what I'm doing right now is I've only got 4 dungeons left before credits roll. I'm pausing on making progress, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to go just spend time in the town and talk to everybody in town. I think the conversations are really good. They're interesting. You do get some good rewards for them, but honestly, I'm just doing it for the writing, because I've had a number of really good chats with some of these people. I think you have a chat with a YouTube streamer, which ends up being a really interesting conversation. You have a chat with a guy who's very focused on being the best, most lethal dungeoneer he can be, and you kind of crack his shell a little bit. You talk to him. You talk to the girl who's working at the concession booth, and she's got some interesting stuff to say. I mean, like, everybody you talk to has like this kind of hidden layer to them, and I think it's really worthwhile having this conversation. So I'm going to pause. I talked to some folks in the Gaming in the Wild Discord, and they confirmed for me that you can basically just stop moving things forward. Nothing's going to happen. There's no deadline. The game won't end if you take too long. And so knowing that, that gave me carte blanche to kind of pause, and I'm just going to talk, just going to rest at the hotel, wake up the next day, talk to some folks, rest again, wake up the next day, and just kind of repeat that cycle until I talk to everybody. And then at that point, I will push forward. And I hope to have the game completely finished before episode 402 next week. Only 4 dungeons left. Even if I only do like 1 dungeon per day and talk to these folks, I feel like I can get through that pretty quickly. So look forward to a final wrap up next week. But so far, Dungeons of Hinterberg is great stuff. Still one of my favorite games of the year. Easily, definitely going to be in my top 10. A lock. Confirmed for sure. Okay, so that was Circlebacks. That's the only older thing I wanted to touch back on. The rest of the stuff is brand new coverage starting right now. All right, so this was kind of an interesting week. When the week started, I had wrapped up my coverage of last week's games, and I'm like, okay, what's on the slate for this week? And it was literally fuck all, nothing. Like, not even a single thing. I don't know what happened, just the PR schedules and release schedules. I mean, I'm usually drowning in games. And to be fair, I did have a bunch of codes and games that I could have played, but none of it really, like, spoke to me, and I didn't want to just review something just for the sake of reviewing it. I wanted to at least be partially interested, right? So I didn't have anything that really grabbed my attention, and nothing seemed like it was coming in soon. And I'm like, oh shit, boy, this is the first time in who knows how long that I didn't already have 2 or 3 games prepped for the next show. So looking at the blank slate, completely blank slate, I'm like, fuck, maybe this is a good time to, I don't know, go to the backlog or something and dig something up, because I just didn't have anything ready to go. So I did pick out a game, but ironically, as soon as I picked out one of my backlog games and started playing it, like the next day I had like 5 other games that just came in after that. So I'm like, oh fuck. Well, there goes backlog week, right? But I did get one in, which I'm happy about. I'm going to talk about right now, but it's just ironic how sometimes, you think you got nothing and you just plow ahead anyway. And then, the universe happens, and then boom, you got a bunch of stuff in front of you. So the life of a video game editor, I guess. So the game I picked for my backlog is called Grow Up. It came out quite a while ago. This was a small game, which was the sequel to Grow Home, which is a fantastic game, really wonderful. I don't know if you've heard of it. I don't know if you've seen it. I've talked about it in the show a couple times before, but basically Grow Home, you play a robot named Bud. He is in space. He gets dropped off on a planet, and his job is to grow a plant from the surface of the planet all the way back up into orbit. And so you're teeny tiny. It ends up being a really kind of Jack and the Beanstalk situation. Lots of physics, lots of goofiness. It's a really small game. You can finish it like in a day, but what a marvelous experience. It was put together by a team of people within Ubisoft. They were working on another game. I forget which one it was. One of the big Ubisoft games, right? But these people were there, and they were thinking, gosh, we've got more in us. We'd like to do something different. We want to do just something outside of the normal Ubisoft template. And this is when Ubisoft was neck deep in doing Ubisoft, right? Like the open world, map marker, confetti, that whole thing, content. So these folks got together and made Grow Up, or no, yes, no, Grow Home. And they pitched it to the Ubisoft, executives, and they were like, yeah, okay, sure, put it out. So Ubisoft created, I think, is it called Ubisoft Reflections? They created like a little sub imprint so that people who were already working in Ubisoft could put out their side games to keep them happy, so that they would keep working on the bigger Ubisoft games, I guess. So Grow Home was the first one. Great stuff. I absolutely 100% recommend it. Please track it down. But Grow Up is the sequel to that. Same robot, Bud. He's still in space. And this time, rather than getting tasked with growing one specific plant from the surface to orbit, he gets dropped off on an entire planet. So like the scale of the game just like explodes. It's the same basic premise. Your ship gets hit by a meteor. It's broken up into a million pieces. In order to get those pieces back, you need to manipulate the plant life on this world to reach faraway locations. So you need to like grow a vine out there, or maybe something's really high up in the sky, hanging up on a flying rock. So you got to grow a vine to go up there. And the way you do that is you kind of just have free reign over the entire planet. You get dropped off. You pick up a couple powers, and you gain more powers as you go. But the thing about Grow Up is that it's third person, and the movement is like slightly procedural. So when you do a lot of climbing in this game, you have a right arm and a left arm to climb with. So if you think about recent climbing games like Jusant or Struggling or something like that, it's similar to that, but this came first. So this is the first one I believe that I can think of anyway, where you had a right arm, left arm climbing mechanic. But it's kind of procedural. So you hold the buttons to grab, but when you let go of the buttons, Bud will kind of like automatically try to figure out where to put his hands. So you guide him in a direction, but it's kind of wonky. It's kind of weird, but like he'll kind of like hover his hands over where he thinks he should go. And then when that looks good to you, you push L2, for example, and his left arm will clamp on. And then you got to wait for his right arm to kind of figure out where it wants to go. And then you push R2. I'm playing on PlayStation, and it'll clamp on, and you kind of just, left, right, climb up, and he'll stick to basically anything in the environment. And I don't believe stamina is an issue. I think you just can climb as much as you want, but the trick is just to like find the right route and to get up there. His legs also procedurally walk, which is kind of funny. So like when you're on a flat surface, it's not that big a deal, but when he's on a rocky surface or uneven surface, you can see the AI trying to figure out like where to put his feet. And I say AI, but it's just, regular procedural stuff, scripting stuff. I mean, it's not like, ChatGPT or anything like that. Like this was way before the current definition of AI happened. So this is a long time before that. We're not using up like a town's worth of water every time Bud goes to a new level or something like that. So don't feel guilty about that. Don't worry. Anyway, so the movement is kind of weird, and it looks semi-organic and semi-crazy, but it's kind of funny in a cute way. But basically you get dropped off on this planet, third person, and you just have the whole planet to walk around on. This time around, he has a new power, which is he can clone plants that he comes across. So for example, the very first plant he'll come across is like a bouncy mushroom, acts like a trampoline. So you find the mushroom, you extract its DNA or whatever, and then you have it in your database. And then every time you're somewhere in the world that you need a trampoline, you can just pop one of those mushrooms out and then use it as a way to get up. There's also like these tall, skinny climbing plants, which kind of act like ladders. There's a catapult plant, which can shoot you like really far distances. There's a few other things. I mean, probably a lot more than a few that you find as you go. And so you kind of gradually open up new techniques for traversing the world, but it's all very, very open. None of it's scripted. It's not linear in any way. And sometimes you can just figure out things that might not work, like maybe catapult yourself and you have a lucky shot. You get someplace where maybe you should have gone right away, or maybe you get to your ladder plant in the right spot, and you can use his grippy hands to kind of kludge your way up to a place or something. So there's lots of like physicsy experimentation, kind of weird movement kind of a thing. But basically, if you can see it, you can get there, depending on what tools you have. Now, Bud will also get level ups depending on when you find the equipment that's scattered around the planet. One of the first things you get is a parachute, so that if you fall from a really high height, and boy, do you get in some heights in this game. If you have a fear of heights, this is not the game for you, because you do a lot of verticality, a lot of climbing on plants, and you're going to fall a lot just because. And so you unlock the parachute first thing. That stops him from getting crushed when he drops to the ground. But you get other things too. There's like a jetpack and I think there's like a double jump or something like that. I mean, I haven't unlocked all of the stuff yet, but I know that you get like several powers. And so between Bud's robotic powers and the ability to clone the DNA of all these different useful plants, you basically get this giant toolbox of stuff to explore this entire planet. And you can very clearly see where all the items are. You have a little robot satellite buddy in the sky, and he points out things to you. So you know where you need to go, and you know what you need to do. It's just a matter of like, how do you get there? How do you get from point A to point B? And a lot of it has to do with verticality. A lot of it has to do with climbing. A lot of it has to do with growing the vines that'll make you get higher up in the atmosphere, et cetera, et cetera. So it's really a very special experience. It's quite unlike anything I've played in quite some time. And I just love the feeling of being Bud and being out there on the planet and just being left to your own devices, just trying to figure things out and just tackle this whole planet all by yourself. I think it's fucking marvelous. And I also really like Grow Home too. So Grow Home and Grow Up are both just fantastic indie experiences. So if you like something super different, if you like physicsy stuff, if you like climbing, if you like the idea of being a tiny robot on a giant beanstalk, if you like the idea of having a backpack full of random alien plants that'll help you with your mobility, it's just a really, really great time and a really special game. You can tell that the people who made this game really loved it, and they had a purpose and a vision when they did it. So it's got that vibe to it. So I especially want to give a shout out to the people at the Gaming in the Wild Discord, because I know the games y'all like in there. I see you talking about them all the time, and I would bet any amount of money that this game is going to click real hard with at least a few of you. So please, if you are listening to the show, if you listen to Gaming in the Wild, if you like indie games, if you like something that's pretty far off the beaten path, Grow Up is fucking fantastic. It's definitely an all-timer for me, and I'm really glad that I got it out of the backlog. I've been meaning to get to it for quite some time, so this is a good excuse, and I'm going to keep on chipping away at it. I think it's just marvelous. So, Grow Up, there you go. Next one was a full disclosure, I paid for Grow Up myself back in the day, but this next game, Mars 2120, I received a code for, as well as the other games of this show. Every game on this show, except for Grow Up and Dungeons of Hinterberg, which I got on Game Pass, I did get a code for from the developer or a publisher. So just heads up, full disclosure, in compliance with the FCC. There you go. Next game, Mars 2120. This is a 2D Metroidvania, very traditional Metroidvania. I believe it comes to us from, I want to say Brazil. I'm not 100% sure on that. I think it's Brazil. And this is a story. I don't know what it's about, basically. I started the game, and there was no intro. There was no tutorial of any kind whatsoever. So you just start, which is really weird. I was like, wow, this is a very, very cold opening. You play a lady who is in some armor, sci-fi armor. She's got a scarf, which is constantly blowing behind her. I mean, it looks cool. I don't know that the wind is like properly blowing to animate that scarf the way it should be animated, but it looks cool. And you just start running. Like, you're just in this planet. Again, 2D Metroidvania. Graphics are, pretty basic, but they're okay. They got some style to them. And you just start running. All of a sudden, a landslide happens. And you're running away from the landslide. And one of the big key selling points of this game from the press materials is that it goes for set pieces. It wants to go for big moments, big exciting moments, that kind of like thrill type stuff. And so they open with the landslide, which honestly I don't think was a good idea, because I'm still just like trying to get my bearings with this game, trying to figure out what's going on, looking for the tutorial, finding nothing. And then all of a sudden, like, the screen starts shaking, and I'm like, what's going on? And then it's not really well telegraphed, right? Like, the screen starts shaking, and you assume you're supposed to start running forward, because that's what you do as a game player. But there's not really anything that indicates you should be running forward other than just your instinct. So I got killed the first time because I'm like, what is happening? Why is the screen shaking? What's going on? Killed by the landslide, and then I restarted, and then I ran to escape the landslide the second time, and it was really rough. I died a couple more times because there are these platforms which are hidden within land masses that are up in front of you. And so the landslide's behind you. It's pushing forward. You got to run away from it. And you look and you see these land masses and you think, okay, I'm going to jump up on that. But then you jump up and it crumbles before you and it reveals the real platform that's hidden by the landmass. And you're like, oh, fuck, I didn't jump right because this platform is much higher, or it's much lower than I thought it was, or it's not where I thought it was. And so you end up getting stuck and then you die. And I just felt like the whole thing was not really well done. Not a great start. You get inside the facility, and again, you're just like trying to figure out the buttons on your own. And to be fair, every ability you would expect from a Metroidvania is here on exactly the button that you think it would be. So it doesn't break from form in that way. Like, it's very traditional. So, jumping's on one button. You can duck, roll, shoot. I mean, it's all just like, okay, I've played this game before several times, and this is that game again. You just are in this facility for some reason, and you're doing some stuff. Again, it didn't get off to a good start because once I got inside, there were these bug enemies that like really get the drop on you. You like move the screen forward a little bit, and they kamikaze in and hit you. I don't really see any way to avoid those. They kind of just get a cheap hit off on you, which I was not a fan of. Later on, you know, obviously the hallways, locked doors. You hit some bullet sponge enemies that seem to take way too many hits in between the bugs that hit you when you don't have a chance to dodge them. You look around for some keys. Eventually you get the wall jump, which is like, you know, again, par for the course. It didn't really work that well, though. You can only wall jump on certain green surfaces. And it's like the first time I tried it, it went perfectly. I'm like, oh, that was fun. And then every other time after that, I wasn't able to get it to work right. I kept falling and I couldn't time it. And I'm not sure, am I supposed to be pressing the direction or what am I doing wrong here? Which way am I pressing or what's happening? And I really struggled with the wall jumping, except for the first time in which I did it perfectly. And I couldn't figure out what I was doing wrong. It just seems to take a lot of cues from Metroid. I think there was like a save station that almost looked like the Metroid Prime save station. The main character looks a little bit like Samus Aran, except for minus the helmet and plus a scarf. I mean, it just feels very straightforward and honestly not a lot of polish, not a lot of extras here. And with this particular genre, the Metroidvania genre is so just chock-a-block full of, I mean, number one, it's just full of games, period. But also there's a lot of like really, really good Metroidvanias out there. I mean, Grime is a good one. Blasphemous is a good one. Oh gosh. Hollow Knight, of course. I mean, I could go on and on. There's like a million that are really, 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 really good. And so I feel like the bar for Metroidvanias is just through the roof right now. So I guess I just don't know what they were going for here. This feels very straightforward, very unsurprising. And it's also rough on top of all that. I can't even say that it really plays very smoothly. I don't think it plays very smoothly. So this was not a win for me. Mars 2120 did not feel like it was ready for prime time. It didn't seem to have a central hook. Character wasn't very strong. I mean, you just got to really up your game in this category, folks. This is a tough category to want to excel in, and I don't think this game has done it. So Mars 2120, I stopped playing it pretty quickly, and I don't really recommend this one, especially when there are so many other just absolutely top tier games out there in the same genre. Hard to recommend. Sorry. Moving on is a really interesting platformer game, I guess. It kind of feels like a point and click. It's also kind of like a platformer. It's also just a comedy experience. It's called Thank Goodness You're Here. And again, I got a code for this one from the publisher. This is a really strange one. I don't even quite know what to do with it, but it's fun. I think it's a really good time. In Thank Goodness You're Here, you play a very small, cartoony human. Everybody in this world is cartoony, except for the opening, which is like actual footage of Britain from I want to say the 60s. Like people on the street, like actual human beings going about their business. You see this alleyway, it's just actual camera footage. And it really threw me for a loop. I'm like, what am I even looking at? What is happening here? Very strange way to open. But you start the game, you're a little guy who looks like he's, I don't know, as big as a Smurf. He's like 3 apples high or something like that. Little yellow guy. And you are, I don't know, the sales rep for something or other. And they want you to go to this British village and just do shit. I don't even know what you're supposed to even be doing. Your only interaction is a slap button. So you can walk, jump, and slap. And that's all you can do. So when you want to talk to somebody, you got to slap them. If you want to see if something is interactable, you slap it. If you see something that needs a slap, you slap it. Just anything that is in the environment, you slap. And you have to do that a lot just to kind of figure out what's movable, what's not, what's breakable, what's not, what's interactable, what's not. So you end up going to these little areas, and they look just like little town squares or, streets, alleys and stuff. And so you just walk around until you find something to do. And basically every person you encounter when you slap them, they'll say something or another. Some people have more to say than others. But they usually have some kind of really funny, very British thing to say. I'm not even going to try to do the accent. I'm not going to try to give an example because I would just make an ass of myself. But trust me when I say that it's funny. I mean, I think a lot of this stuff is really funny. I was laughing. And then you end up having to do these little quests that at first are pretty opaque. You're not really sure what to do. The first example is there's a person who's got their hand stuck in a sewer grate. Apparently he's found a tuppence and he doesn't want to let go of it, and his arm is stuck in there. And so you got to just kind of figure out what's happening. And he says like, oh, I need some lubrication or something like that in a really funny way. And so you just kind of wander around these areas until you slap things and you click on things basically until you find what you can interact with. And then you got to figure out the sequence of events that gets it done. So in this case, I forget exactly what it was, but like you open up another person's shop and they have a big tub of butter and you kick the butter in the street and it rolls over to the guy whose arm is stuck in the grate, and he gets the butter and he puts it on his one arm, and then he puts it on his armpit, then he puts it on his other armpit, and then he eats it, and then he gets his arm out, and it turns out to be a threepence instead of a tuppence. And I guess it doesn't sound very funny when I'm talking about it, but trust me, I was like laughing when I was doing this. It was just really, really absurd and goofy and just really unpredictable. You'll have like lots of little moments like that. There's another moment where you're mowing a lawn randomly. This guy's like, hey, mow my lawn. And you do. And the interface completely changes. It's almost like a WarioWare type experience where all of a sudden it goes to the side view kind of thing. And you see these two flowers just like telling each other that they love themselves over and over and over. And you're like mowing in the back and you're getting closer and closer and closer. And I'm not going to spoil it for you, but I'm sure you can see where this is going. So you have all these like just really wacky, absurd situations. And they're always like a joke, like really absurd joke, just like eccentric, odd, I mean, I'm sure they're even odd even for British people, right? It's not odd just because it's British. It's odd because it is British, but also because it's like this really absurdist comedy that you have to just kind of take in stride. And if you laugh at that kind of thing, I think you will probably laugh a lot. I did laugh a lot. I thought it was very clever. The graphics are pleasantly cartoony. There's a lot of just little jokes in the background, the stuff on posters, the stuff that people say, a lot of like just really silly situations. That are all good times. The only criticism I really have of it is that there were a few times when I wasn't quite sure what to do. And I mean, really what it comes down to when you get stuck is just slap everything. But there was once or twice where I was like, oh damn, okay, I think I've slapped everything and I don't know what I didn't slap. And I'm kind of going in circles. I mean, I was never stuck for too long, but there was a few points where I was like, I'm not really sure where I'm supposed to go or what I'm supposed to do. It feels a little bit unfocused. And this game tends to move you back and forth between locations, which I honestly think was a bad idea. It's not a terrible idea. It doesn't ruin the game by any stretch of the imagination. But at one point, I was going back and forth between 3 or 4 different locations. And I was like, okay, this is like a little bit too much because there's no map. And even though they're not large locations, sometimes it's a little bit opaque as to how they connect to each other, how to get back and forth to the other location you were just at. And sometimes you're not sure, am I supposed to do something in location A that affects location B? Or am I just missing something in location B and location A is just there when I want to move on? Like, it's a little bit murky as far as like what you're supposed to do. So I would have preferred that they keep everything in smaller locations. Like, let's say, for example, you're in a town square. Everything you need to do is in this town square and you don't need to leave the town square. And then when you're done, then you move on to the next location, which is maybe the back alley. And then when you're done there, then you move on to like the butcher shop or whatever. I don't know that it really gains anything by letting you go back and forth between locations, because for me, all it did was slow down the pace of the jokes and it had me wandering aimlessly a little bit. And I think that this is such a small experience. I've heard it's maybe 3 or 4 hours. And the jokes, I mean, the jokes are what you're here for. It's not the gameplay. It's not the slapping. It's really the jokes, right? And so when the jokes slow down because you're stuck or you're lost or you don't know what to do, then it starts to feel tedious and like the glow starts to wear off of it. So I think they made a slight miscalculation in not being more linear. I think more linearity would have helped it, honestly. But still, I don't mean to make that sound like a do not go. No, I think you should check it out. It's a riot. It's weird. It's goofy. I don't know that I've played anything like it in the recent past. I laughed a lot. The voices are funny. And I do appreciate that there's full subtitles for everything in the game, because sometimes as an American, I do not understand what those people were saying with the accents and stuff. So thank you for the subtitles. You can also adjust the size of the subs, which is great. So anyway, Thank Goodness You're Here is really like nothing else I've played this year. It's goofy. It's funny. It's more of an experience than a game. And I think it's well worth taking if you like British humor, Monty Python type stuff, or just really absurd kind of like jokey joke humor kind of thing. So yeah, pretty good stuff. I had a good time with it. So that is Thank Goodness You're Here. Next up is Deathbound, a third-person Souls-like, which is a smaller scale project. I believe it got a grant from Epic. I think it's called the Epic Mega Grant. So they got a bunch of money to work on this. I think it's launching at a lower price point. I believe it retails for something like $35. There's also a demo as well. So I absolutely appreciate smaller games. I do not need AAA mega polish with all of my games. I'm happy to play an interesting indie or something that's like a B tier game, AA game perhaps. I'm all in on those. So that is just fine for me. And that's exactly what this is. This is a kind of a AA Souls-like, which has a lot of actually interesting things to it. So number one, basic platform Souls-like. You know, you've got your stamina, you've got your deliberate combat, you've got save points, you've got corpse runs, all the usual Souls trappings are here. So that's fine. I think we all at this point know what to expect when I say Souls-like, and if you're listening to this podcast, I definitely think you know what to expect when I say Souls-like. But this one is interesting. This one is interesting because there's a couple of hooks to it. So number one, there is a character swapping system that I think is kind of the core of the game, and that's really what I'm connecting with. So the setting... Sorry, I'm feeling very scattered right now, folks. I need a little bit more coffee. Let me back up a little bit. So the setting is kind of a post-apocalyptic civilization. I don't know if anybody here listening is old enough to remember an 80s cartoon from Hanna-Barbera called Thundar the Barbarian. I love Thundar the Barbarian. I'm actually rewatching it right now. And in that cartoon, they take the normal Earth, post-apocalyptic happens, like a meteor goes by Earth, fucks up gravity, messes with the tides, the whole thing, and the planet goes just tits up for a while. And then 2,000 years later, all the activities in the cartoon happen in this post-apocalyptic Earth where people are living in the ruins of buildings. There's like trains that are rusted over. There's leftover technology, but then there's also magic and there's also monsters. So it's kind of like, the leftovers of a dead Earth and people struggling to survive. They do the exact same setting here in Deathbound, and I think it really works. It's really appealing. You don't quite know what's happening in the beginning, but the opening cutscene shows this like really like fascistic kind of evil, oppressing force, and you are one of them. It's a very strange beginning, but I think it works. You're like the captain of this like fascist death army. Very, very like Warhammer 40k, right? Like very like religious, orthodox in a bad way, like to extremes, punish the heretics kind of a vibe going on. And you go to this city of survivors. And in the opening cutscene, your army looks like a fucking rampaging army of death in skull helmets. And the enemy army is like women and children holding sticks. They're fucking scared. They're going to piss themselves. They're so scared. And then your army rolls in and just like fucking kills the entire city, right? So you're on the side of the bad guys. You are the oppressors. So what happens is you get there, and it turns out that this city that you are invading is like a leftover... I don't know, it's like a scientific, like a water treatment plant, and there's buildings and stuff. So you can see the remnants of like what a modern human civilization would look like. And it's so fucking cool. Like you go in, there's like labs and you can recognize some of the equipment, and you see like the way that they built like the ladders and the gantries and just like how the building looks. It just looks like something that was built by quote unquote the ancients or the first men, like they get called in this game, but they're talking about us. And so I think it's really cool to have a game set in that. Anyway, you get into the city. Your job is to find this one scientist. You're going after him. I'm not going to spoil the whole thing, but basically soon after you end up having this encounter with a dead body, and its spirit flies up and into you. Turns out that spirit was one of the people who was taking refuge in the city. And so you came in, your army killed a bunch of people. And this is one of the people that was killed before you got there. The spirit merges with you, and she is like an assassin lady who was in the city helping the refugees do whatever it is that they need to do. So from this point forward, you have both of the main ideas of this game in one kind of fell swoop. Number one is character switching / class differentiation. A couple other games have tried this in the Souls-like genre, and I don't think they've ever worked as well as it's worked here. So basically, you start out with your Death Knight, your fascist, like Warhammer 40k guy. He's like a sword and board guy. He's got his shield, he's got a sword, helmet, he can parry, he can block. Pretty standard kind of like knight type guy. But when you meet this dead body and the soul goes into you, she's an assassin. She cannot block at all. She has no parry. Like the moveset is totally different. She's got a light attack, she's got a jump attack, and then she's got a crossbow with limited bolts, so she can shoot and reload. So right off the bat, you really got to think about, okay, wait a minute. These characters don't control really almost anything at all alike. And my tactics that I've been using so far with this guy and his shield and parrying and and his sword do not work with this lady. So it's immediately a different game style. A little bit later on, you come across another dead body, and that soul joins you as well. And this guy is a fucking, well, they call him an essence mancer, which I think is kind of a clunky name. But basically, he is kind of like a magician, and he acts a little bit like a sniper almost, where he can cast magic spells from like a really far distance away. But the downside to him is that every time he casts a spell, he makes himself sick. And they talk about this in the cutscene, which I'll get to in a second. But basically, his powers come from like being ill, and he needed to be cured. They couldn't find a cure, so he's using his powers, but he's got to be judicious. And so whenever he casts a spell, he gets like this heat affliction on him. And if you do too many spells in a row, he explodes, and it fucking kills him. Like, he just like dies, right? So there's already like a huge amount of risk reward. You can kill guys from far away, get these like long sniper hits in, do some damage. He casts poison and stuff like that. But you do too many of those, and he fucking like blows himself up. And anybody nearby, sure, but you dying is the problem. And if any one of these people dies, you all die. Like, you're all joined together. So in effect, to the part that I'm at right now, I have a knight, I have a thief who can do some backstabs, I have a wizard guy who is weak and sick, but he can cast like long distance magic, and you can cycle between any of these people at any time. So you go forward. If you're in a situation that has close-up melee, you want to go to the knight guy. If you see somebody off in the distance on a gantry, then you switch over to the magician, and he can get him like an acid ball from a mile away. If you see somebody with their back to you, you switch over to the assassin, and then she like backstabs, and you just go back and forth as the need arises. But each moveset feels totally different. Like the mage, the wizard guy, he has no physical attacks at all. And so you go from being a tanky knight with a sword and shield to a wizard who has to dodge everything, like basically a glass cannon, within the span of a heartbeat. So it is really mentally challenging, but I think it's great. I love that feeling of having so many different classes and being able to just like go back and forth as the need arises. It's also pretty neat because when one person takes damage, the way to get their life back, I mean, you do have some life ups, but you don't have an Estus flask like you do in Souls. This is another one of the biggest changes. You have to switch to somebody else. And so if somebody else, the active character, does damage, that they will heal the resting character for as much damage as you do. So let's say, for example, you're the knight, you get to a big fight, you take some hits, you're down to half life, you're like, ugh, getting kind of low. You switch to the assassin, you backstab a couple guys, or you shoot them with your bow and arrow, your crossbow, and then the knight's life is refilled by you doing damage. So you have to kind of manage between each of these classes in order to keep everybody healthy. So whenever one person gets low, it kind of forces you to use the other people, which means you're never going to ever be, for example, like, oh, I just want to be the knight all the time, I'm going to stick him, and I don't want to use the assassin or the mage. You can't, because there's not really an easy way to get your life back. The game smartly forces you to cycle between them at regular intervals to make sure that you're getting used to all of their different movesets and trying to figure out the best use case strategies for all of them. Ultimately, you will get 7 characters. What I've seen so far are the 3 that I saw here in this game. And in the demo, I saw 2 more. I saw a lady who had a spear, and there was also a guy who was doing capoeira. So I've seen 5 of the 7 altogether, and I'm very curious to see who the final 2 are. But so that's the thing. I think that works really well. And I think that I've called this out before. I will just mention it again here. I think the closest corollary to something like this was Mortal Shell, which came out a couple years ago. Except Mortal Shell had the same basic idea, but the implementation was totally different. In Mortal Shell, I think you had 3 or 4 different bodies. You could choose one, but you couldn't switch between them on the fly. And basically, once you picked one, when you started doing level ups, like you had one body who was really buffed out and had all the perks and stuff, and the other bodies were super weak. There was no real reason to switch between them. You just had to pick the one that you liked, and then you stuck with it. So a good idea, but I remember being really disappointed by Mortal Shell and thinking it just did not live up to the hype of its idea of like being able to switch between bodies. Felt like a non-issue. So, but I feel like Deathbound really does take that same idea and capitalizes on it. Really puts it through its paces. It becomes a core aspect of gameplay. Like, you can't go 5 seconds without switching between bodies. There's special attacks you do when you switch a body. There's special dodges you do when you switch your body. The life system ensures you're going to switch. Just their very nature, like, of their different gameplay styles ensure that you're going to switch. So I think that's a great implementation. It's fucking interesting and super strategic in a way that I haven't really seen in a Souls-like game before. So that's one big change. The lack of an Estus flask is another big change. But the other biggest change is the story and characters. So something that's really fascinating is that they really lean into the characters and storytelling. So they set up the whole premise of this evil force, which you are a part of, coming to this city of refugees and just like wiping them out. But this city becomes like a central location, and with each new character that you add to your roster, you go through this like tutorial section that tells you basically their entire life story of who they were and how they got there and what happened to them. And as you might imagine, as you start at the game being the night guy who is like basically the asshole of the world and nobody likes him, having these other voices incorporated into your body, they start to talk to each other and they start to argue with each other. It's not constant, but you do get a pretty fair amount of discussion. And when you get to like a significant point, you'll hear the voices inside your head. It's like a whole chorus. And the guy doesn't want to share his body. The other people don't want to be in his body. They don't want to be there. They don't know why they're stuck like this. They don't know why it's happening. And they just don't like each other sometimes. So this manifests in a few ways. I mean, a lot of it is just the discussion. So you get to know the characters fairly well, or at least way more than your average Souls-like, right? So I think traditionally, the Miyazaki flavor of Souls is like, you read the item descriptions, which I personally find incredibly boring. You piece lore together. You don't quite know the whole picture. I mean, yeah, we get it. We've done it 1,000 times. And it's never really worked for me. I am not a fan of any of the stories of any of the Souls-like games, except for maybe the first Demon Souls. I thought that was pretty easy to follow. But basically, they lay it all out for you on Front Street here. They're like, hey, this is this guy. This is his background. Here's this lady. Here's her background. This is how they butt heads or how they complement each other. And they just kind of go through the whole thing. They talk about the city and like what their intentions were and what they think about each other. And it's just really refreshing to be able to play a game like this and not be kept in the dark the whole time, and not just play it just for playing its sake, but also to understand that there is other characters and a story and how things are moving forward. I thought that was great. There's also a gameplay implementation on this, because when you choose which spirits you want to have in your body, I mean, at the beginning, you only have, like 3 or 4. You can hold 4 at a time. And then once you get the other 3, you have to like mix and match them. So where you place them on your equipment screen matters. If you put 2 spirits next to each other who like each other, they'll get like an agreement buff or a synergy buff. So their attacks go up and they get some other bonus effects. If you put, for example, the refugee lady, the assassin lady, next to the guy who's the fascist, they fucking hate each other. They do not like each other, and they will get negative effects. So your attacks might be weaker, or each person might have a different ability that's triggered because they are mad at the other person. So for example, the fascist guy, the knight guy, he gets, depending on which way you spec him out, he can actually get much stronger defense based on how many spirits are next to him that hate him, because he is really steadfast and hard-headed and, inflexible. And so by meeting that internal resistance, it makes him tougher on the outside. Same thing for the lady. I think she gets like more brutal strikes if she's next to somebody that she hates. But there's also like good benefits too. Like I think you get like higher life if you're next to somebody that you like, so forth and so on. I haven't really fully explored that whole system, but I think it's really interesting. I need to get a couple more spirits and kind of flesh it out and see how it all works. But I think so far it's really, really fascinating. I love these concepts. I love that somebody's doing something genuinely different with the Souls-like experience. I think, starting from the same beginning point is fine, but we've had a lot of Souls-likes, a lot of competitors, a lot of copycats, and I'm kind of over the whole thing in general. So it's pretty refreshing to meet some developers who are not afraid to shake things up in a big way, not afraid to tip over some of those sacred cows and do something different. So I think that's great. Things to be aware of. It's rough. I don't think it's, like I said before, it's like a AA kind of experience. There's some hiccups. I think the combat is probably not like super tight and tuned as like the Souls tryhards are going to want it to be. I can imagine some people saying, oh, the hitboxes are a little wonky, or the dashing doesn't feel quite as tight as I want it to be. I mean, sure, that's fine, I guess. I mean, I'm happy to exchange a little, mechanical proficiency for conceptual imagination. I feel like for me, that's a fair trade-off to do. Otherwise, I think, just expect a lower budget kind of a thing, but I think that's fine. I don't say that as a knock. I'm not trying to dissuade anybody. In fact, I'm having a great time with it. I think it's really good. And I think any Souls player who wants something a little outside the norm, who wants to explore what else a Souls-like can be, would be, really well served by checking this one out. I'm just really into it so far. I just love the moment to moment, like I think that's really what's working for me, in addition to the story, but just like going down a hallway, being in the shield and sword guy, fighting off some spiders or something, and then I see an archer off in the distance. I morph into the magician, fire off an acid ball, but I switch back before I do too many because I don't want to blow up. and then I'm like the assassin, like backstabbing somebody, and then I switch back to the knife guy or the sword guy. I mean, just like kind of going back and forth in real time and all this in this way really gives a different feeling and a different like moment to moment to moment strategy that I just don't find in other Souls like. So really a big fan of that so far. Some people have told me it gets pretty hard at the end. I don't know. I'm not there yet, but difficulty curve is something that every Souls like struggles with, and I don't know if I will see it all the way through. I would like to, because so far I'm definitely in. I really like this a lot. Oh, the other big knock, I will say, one thing that is absolutely a problem, and developers, I hope you're listening to this, is that your save points, your bonfires, are way too fucking far apart. That's my only complaint so far, is I'm frequently feeling like I'm like, okay, I've been in the field for quite a while now. I really would like a save point. I really want to cash in my souls. Let's do that, please. And then I just don't hit one and I die. And then I got to do a corpse run. So that's happened to me a few times. It's not that big a deal, but I really would like more convenient save points. I think they're called phylacteries in this game. So that's my only knock so far. My only legitimate complaint: do not make me go that far between save points. It's just too far. But other than that, definitely liking this one quite a bit. It's very different, very fresh, very original. Enjoying the switching bodies mechanic and the storytelling mechanic and the personalities mechanic. So I'm all in so far. I'm all in. If you like a Souls-like, if you want something that's different, if you like Mortal Shell, if you like any of the different kind of offbeat Souls-likes, definitely one to check out. Having a great time with this. Okay, one more segment before the end here, and I've got a little something special for you folks. Recently, the PR people handling the upcoming, or I guess right now as released, Five Nights at Freddy's Into the Pit reached out and wanted to pass a code my way. Now, full disclosure, I am not a FNAF fan. I know of it. I've been surrounded by it for the last few years. I mean, it's almost impossible to escape if you're in the game sphere whatsoever. But also, I've got a closer connection to it because my kid, Whitaker, is a big Five Nights at Freddy's fan and has been for a while. So he's really tapped in and tuned in to all the FNAF stuff. And I generally ignore it, but whenever we get a new code, I'm like, oh, maybe the kid would like to play this. So I checked in with him. He said he would. PR sent the code. Full disclosure, they sent the code, and he was kind enough to be the guinea pig for me on this game. So I have invited him here to the Game Critics West studio, also known as my basement, to talk about Five Nights at Freddy's Into the Pit. Whitty, welcome to the show.
Hey, it's been a while.
Yeah, it's been quite a while. Do you remember what the last time we had you on for was?
It was at least a couple years ago, if not more.
Yeah, but what was the game we were talking about?
I have no idea. It's been a while.
I don't remember either. It's probably the last Five Nights at Freddy's, I'm guessing. So, all right, dude, thanks for playing this game for me. Thanks for taking one for the team here. I'm not much of a FNAF fan, and I know that you are. So I guess briefly, tell us a little bit about Into the Pit. What is it? How is it different from the last one? Just give us some basic info.
Well, it's definitely been interesting so far. It follows a little bit of a different track than most of the FNAF games, with the sense that its graphics are, instead of being like a more realistic look to them, it's a lot more pixelated. I wouldn't say 16-bit, maybe a bit above that. And it definitely has a lot more different game mechanics in terms of how you play it. Instead of just either sitting in an office or wandering around a ginormous map, you have a few select areas you can look around. The maps aren't huge, and it's been pretty good so far, especially with some of the puzzles that they give you.
Okay, so let me clarify real quick, dude, because I've seen you play these FNAF games before. I know the original one was kind of like you're in an office and you're like opening doors and watching cameras, and then we played that one with what was the one with like Glamrock Freddy? Like, what was that one called?
Five Nights at Freddy's Security Breach, the train wreck in the FNAF series.
And that was the one where you're wandering around like a mall or something, or like you were like an open space area, right?
Yeah, you're in like the Mega Pizzaplex, whatever it was. It was just this ginormous building you walked around in, and there was way too much of a map.
Okay, so I remember those. Now this one is different because I watched over your shoulder for a while here, and this is, like you said, 16-bit pixel graphics, 2D, and it's interesting because it almost reminded me of like a point and click, because there seem to be several puzzles and like no combat or anything. Do you think it's kind of fair to describe it as more of a point and click?
It's almost a point and click. It just uses WASD to move.
Exactly right. But like you're kind of picking up like items. I thought I saw a locked door, and you were kind of like trying to figure out clues and stuff like that, right?
Essentially, yes. Yeah, it's just a point and click where you walk around, you find stuff to solve a puzzle, and then you move on.
Okay. And then you were telling me that this was a time travel game. That's really kind of the hook, right? Because the pit that they're talking about, like when I first heard of this, I was imagining some giant dark hole in the ground, like Silence of the Lambs or something, which I know you haven't seen. But actually, it's like the ball pit, like at a Chuck E. Cheese, right?
Yeah, it follows the books where this kid finds an old ball pit that when you jump into it, it transports you back to 1983.
Okay, now as far as you know, like, does this follow like established events in the canon? Like, if for example, if I was a fan of Five Nights at Freddy's, like if I'd been playing the series since game one, would I want to play this one to find out the story, or is it just not really that important?
I wouldn't necessarily say it's fully connected to the main series of games. It follows it closely with the whole generic synopsis of, murder, uh, murder animatronics, haunted animatronics. I mean, it's basically this just general, but in the same universe.
All right, cool. So, okay, so I was watching you, and you seem to be kind of making some good progress. Like, your guy was walking around, you'd be like in present day, do some stuff, jump in the ball pit, and then you'd come out like in I'm not sure if it was the past or the future, but like all like it was decrepit and creepy and gross. And then you're being chased by a big, I want to say like a rabbit animatronic. Is that right?
Yeah, it's the Spring Bonnie animatronic, I'm pretty sure.
Spring Bonnie. Okay. I'm not super familiar with all of the cast of Five Nights at Freddy's, but I have heard of that one before. Like a big yellow rabbit, it chases you around. Now, you just have to run from that one, right? Like, you cannot fight it or anything?
Yeah, you just run away from it. You hide inside of, like, under a table or in a chest or, like, in a closet. And there's even one point where you get to hide in a spare animatronic suit. And if he's close enough when you hide, you get a special mini game where it gets really detailed compared to everything else, like in terms of animation quality, and you have to click a few buttons or hold the space bar to hold your breath when he's right there.
Okay, so you're kind of like running, hiding. Every once in a while, you're hiding inside an animatronic suit. A lot of this sounds like kind of par for the course for the series overall. So I guess you have not finished it, right?
No, I haven't finished it yet.
Okay. So I guess so far, just give us your general take. You like it? Is it fun? Like, as somebody who's played most of the games, do you like the direction they went? Do you think the graphics are good? Give us your general take on it.
I do like it. They followed quite closely to the books, which I had read a couple of times before I had actually played this game. And I do like it. The puzzles are a little bit repetitive sometimes. And
in what way?
Like in the first night when the rabbit is first in your house, because he like comes back through the past to the future. And
oh wait, the rabbit can go in the ball pit too?
Yeah, he like grabs your dad and pulls him into the pit and then like replaces him with like a hologram.
Sounds like the worst version of like Back to the Future.
Yeah, it's like Back to the Future, but if everyone just sucked.
But if shitty?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay, so anyway, so tell us about you said the puzzle repetitive, but like, how is the rest of it? Do you find it really difficult? Is it fun? Is it scary? Like, tell me more.
It's not super difficult. I don't use WASD very much to play games, so I'm obviously not the greatest at running away from him, but it's honestly a pretty basic level on difficulty, even on the highest one.
Okay. And so far, are you jump scared at all? Did like any urine come out?
No. I mean, it hasn't really been that scary so far. Because you usually see him coming because it's 2D. I mean, you're going to see him from across the way. You have a pretty good field of view. And the only time he ever jump scares you is if he finds you or, like, grabs you while you're running away. But you have pretty fair warning before then.
All right. So it sounds good so far. So I guess in summation, I suppose, would you say that this is a recommend for people who like the Five Nights at Freddy's franchise? Do you like what they're doing here? Do you like this new direction? Would you say that people who like FNAF should go play this?
Yeah, I think if you're looking for something slightly different than what the normal games can offer you, I would recommend playing Into the Pit. It's been pretty enjoyable so far. You might have to look it up on some parts because I still haven't gotten past one puzzle. So, yeah.
So you're a little bit stuck right now.
Yeah, the rat trap puzzle can eat shit.
Okay. Well, I'm sure that there's going to be some walkthroughs. I know that you got an early copy thanks to the publisher, and there was not a lot of help online. And speaking as a reviewer of many years, I know that's really sometimes a tough place to be in. Like when you're playing a game, PR doesn't have help. You don't have anybody else you can ask, and there's no YouTube videos up or anything. So sometimes you do get stuck if you can't figure something out. But I bet you'll probably get back on track pretty soon. Are you going to try to finish it?
Oh, yeah, I'm going to try and finish it soon. I got to find out how to get past that puzzle, and I think it should be all right past then. I don't think it's very long.
Okay. All right, sounds good. So overall, thumbs up, thumbs down?
Oh, yeah, thumbs up.
All right, cool. All right, dude, thank you very much for making your trip all the way down here to the basement to be on my podcast. I really appreciate it. Any final words for our listeners?
No, I think that's it.
All right, thanks, kid. I'll see you upstairs.
upstairs.
All right, folks. Hope you enjoyed that little guest appearance by my 15-year-old. He is way more of a FNAF fan than I am, so I figured why not call in an expert, right? All right, and this is going to bring us to the end of the new games portion of this particular episode. Let's wrap it up here. To recap, we talked about Dungeons of Hinterberg as a circle back. We talked about Grow Up, Mars 2120, Thank Goodness You're Here, Deathbound, and finally just now, Five Nights at Freddy's Into the Pit. All right, that's it for the games portion of the show, but I do have a few non-game things to mention, as I traditionally do, usually movies and TV, and that is true this week. First off, just a quick mention to Deep Space Nine, Star Trek. Still watching that. I think we're on season 4 or 5. I can't remember. We're watching maybe one a night, so we're making pretty good progress through it. And I gotta say, it really is a good series. I never watched it before, and I heard a lot of people say that it was either as good or better than Next Generation. Wasn't sure about that, but I actually can confirm that. I think it's at least as good as Next Generation, and honestly, I think it might be a little bit better, to be just perfectly frank. I think part of that has to do because they're on a space station, so they have a lot more time to spend with people just interacting with each other, building up the characters. They have more recurring characters because they're not going to a different planet every week, and I think that's just structurally an advantage over Star Trek. I mean, I'm not shit talking Next Generation at all. I love Next Generation. But I do think that just some of the things they show and some of the writing they go for in Deep Space Nine is really quite fucking good. I will say one thing that I don't like about it is I think their handling of Worf is kind of misguided. We watched an episode recently where Worf had some really bizarre behavior changes, and we weren't really sure what was happening. I thought maybe he was going to be affected by some kind of special artifact or something. But that wasn't the case. It turned out that the writers were just trying to show a darker side of Worf. I guess the theory was that they were trying to say he was more controlled and, I don't know, more comfortable or something on the Enterprise. But now that he's on Deep Space Nine and he's not around his former cast and crew, he feels a little bit lost. He's maybe examining himself a little bit more, which makes perfect sense. I get it, right? But he all of a sudden became kind of way meaner and way less honorable than he seemed on Enterprise. And it just seemed very quick. We didn't really get a lot of a ramp down to where he is. And I read some interviews about that particular episode where he kind of has this weird behavior. And apparently the writer and the producer were all oh, we're so upset that the audience didn't get it. They just didn't understand what we were going for. And I'm well, you could think that, but that's what a poor writer thinks. I think a good writer thinks, well, I didn't communicate this well enough. I think that if their goal was to show that Worf has all along been harboring this really dark side, they should have taken more time to get there. They should have taken more care in unrolling that. It seemed like he just had a weird personality transplant, and it just didn't land. But other than that, that's really been the only really hollow note in the show so far. We watched a lot of stuff talking about the Bajorans versus the Cardassians. And it's funny because as a main theme of the show, it really rings so true with a lot of what's going on today. Talking about putting aside your differences, being divided, about the way that politics can get in between people and the relationship they could have. I can't go into the whole bit of it right now, but honestly, so much of Deep Space Nine seems absolutely prescient for the times that we are going through right now. So much of what is on that screen from 10 or 15 or 20 years ago or whatever it was, it feels like it could have been made today about things that are happening right now. It's just really, really impressive. Also, shout out to Quark, the Ferengi, who is this really funny, sometimes comic relief, sometimes he's the villain. It kind of depends on what mood he's in. But in one episode, they time travel back to 1946 in America. And I really was impressed by the writers taking a dig at American culture, because they talk about atomic testing, and Quark is oh my God, these people are barbarians. You detonate atomic bombs in your own planet, in your own atmosphere. What's wrong with you people? Very basic common sense stuff that people who care about Earth and want to live here have concerns about. Also, same thing with cigarettes. Every single person in that episode smokes, and he's what the hell is this? It's poison. How are you guys putting poison in your bodies? You humans are crazy. And I'm yes, Quark, exactly. We are fucking crazy. So I appreciated the writers took that little dig at American culture, which was more than deserved. And anyway, just nice. A lot of good moments in Deep Space Nine. It's really, really great stuff. Also, shout out to a movie called T-34. This is a Russian-made action drama about a T-34 tank. It's a type of tank. I heard that part of this was based in reality. I don't know how much of this is true. I'm sure most of it is fictionalized, but it's still made for a pretty exciting movie. In this film, it's Russians versus the Germans during World War II, I believe. Two, yes, two, and the Russians are the good guys because this is a Russian-made film. They are a tank crew. They absolutely wreck shop on a bunch of German tanks, and then something happens. They get captured. They go to a POW camp. That was pretty horrible. The Germans decide to use this prisoner tank crew as like target practice for their own tank recruits. So they throw them out in the field, and whatever. Things happen. I'm not going to spoil the whole thing, but basically the Russians get their hands on a working tank again, and they bust out of the prison camp. And it's just this really exciting, like, bunch of tank battles and a chase through the German countryside or whatever. It's just really great stuff. Most of the effects were pretty good. You could tell there was some CG in there that kind of stuck out a little bit, but overall not bad at all. And I think it was just one of those like popcorn movies that you watch in the afternoon when you want to just kind of kick back, turn your brain off for a minute. And it was much, much better than I gave it credit for. My son is the one who wanted to watch it because he is the War Thunder fan and he wanted to watch something with tanks in it. So I'm like, whatever. I thought this was going to be just like a total schlocky throwaway, but actually I ended up getting pretty engrossed into it from an action movie perspective. So thumbs up to T34. It was actually way better than I thought it was going to be. Also, big thumbs down to The Babysitter 2 Killer Queen. The original Babysitter was a Netflix original about a kid who is getting babysat by this, I don't know, college age blonde, super hottie girl or whatever. Turns out that she's like a devil worshiper and all sorts of shit breaks loose. It was a really fun movie. My wife and I had a great time with it. It was just like a romp. And, if you're into horror comedies like we are, The Babysitter I thought was a pretty good one. So I didn't even realize there was a sequel until we watched it last week. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, the first one was pretty good. I mean, it's basically the same thing. All they got to do is just clear this little low bar and we'll have a good time with it. And man, it was like the worst movie we've seen in quite some time. It did not meet that low bar. It was stupid. It didn't make any sense. They didn't explain anything. The action was dumb. And it was like aggressively bad because the director really felt like it didn't feel like he was even trying. It felt like he was throwing together a bunch of schlock and was expecting us to eat it up. I did not feel like this was a genuine effort. It felt like somebody was doing something for a paycheck. And the worst part was they had put in a lot of really, really dated references. Stuff that just didn't make sense anymore. And this movie's only like, I think 2 years old. So it's not like it's 20 years old. And I couldn't figure out why the fuck the references were all so dated. I mean, it would have made sense because at one point, these people who were killed in the first movie come back. And I'm like, okay, well, if you're going to make dated references, it makes sense for a character who's been dead for a long time to make those references, really underlining that they've been off of the planet for a while. But that wasn't even how it was. They hadn't been dead for that long. And just like all the stuff they were referencing was really strange. All the music they used for the movie was really old, like and not in a kitschy retro kind of cute wink wink way. It just felt like the director is incredibly out of touch. Very awkward references, very awkward music choices, poor script. It was just painful to sit through. We got about halfway through and my wife was like, okay, I want to pull the plug. And I'm like, I do too, but this is so terrible. I want to see the whole thing so I can completely just roast it. And it was just so bad. Really, really disappointed. So I don't often talk about a movie or a TV show just to pile burning hate on it, but I have to do that this week. The Babysitter 2 Killer Queen was like literally the worst I've seen in a while. So fucking bad. Speaking of other things that are bad, the Olympics, dude. I mean, I like the Olympics. I watch them every 4 years. I'm not like a super fan, but I get into it. We watch like the summer and the winter. I love like the curling. That's really fun. Skiing is really exciting in the winter. In the summertime, you got people running, the javelin, all that kind of stuff, the 50 meter, the 100 meter, the 10 billion meter, all the different races, the swimming and stuff. Exciting stuff. But I got to say, we're watching it on Peacock right now, and I feel like its coverage is just fucking awful. I mean, on the plus side, I do give them props because they have a lot of stuff uploaded. And if you don't watch it live, you can just, go into the Peacock app later and be like, oh, I want to watch cycling. I want to watch running. I want to watch whatever. And you can just watch those as a streaming product, which is great. I feel like that in itself is a big improvement because you can't sit in front of your TV all day long, all night long. Sometimes the events are on at weird times because it's happening in another country. So it makes sense to make it streaming. That part is good. The rest of it has been fucking garbage. There's too much stuff in the app. It's really hard to tell what's what. And like sometimes we think we'd be watching one thing and it's actually not that thing. or we're like, oh, we want to see the final, and this is not the final. It was like the warm up, and like some of the stuff is just cluttered, and they need to really streamline it down. And in the coverage itself, oh my gosh, they needed like an editor so bad. We'd often be watching like some of the feed, and it would be like people in the crowd for several minutes, and like the athletes tying their shoes for several minutes. I'm like, dude, cut all this stuff out. Like, what the hell? It's like they just took the raw live feed and uploaded it to the web. And I'm like, I don't want to see the prep when they're sweeping the court and when they're like, you know, getting their hat on and stuff. Like, just get to the action, man. And in addition to that, I felt like the quality of announcers was really hit or miss. We had a couple good announcers, like the skateboarding announcers were really good. Like, you could tell those guys knew what they were talking about. They were like naming off moves. They were explaining moves, like why something was good and why something wasn't. But then we'd be watching like the race or like the gymnastics. The gymnastics was the worst because big things would happen. You'd hear the crowd go wild, and I'm like, why are they going wild? What's going on? I don't understand. I need the announcer to tell me like what happened. You know, sometimes somebody would get enough points and they would qualify for something, but we didn't know because there's like no ticker down at the bottom of the screen, no information. We're kind of just like watching it dumbly, like waiting for somebody to say something. I mean, the worst part, I think I'm going to mention this before, was like we were watching the women's gymnastics and we were just like sitting there just waiting for something to happen. All of a sudden the crowd explodes. And then we see the gymnast from Italy start crying. And I'm like, what happened? What is going on? And it wasn't until later we found out that at that moment, that Italy realized they had got enough points to get a silver. And I'm like, cool, that would have been very exciting if somebody had fucking told us that. Like, I want to know, hey, in the lead up, Italy needs to get 3 more points. And if they clear the score, they're going to get the medal. I'm like, okay, that's exciting. Let us know what the stakes are. Build up the drama. The announcers were just like fucking miserable. Like, it was just, we're often in the dark about what's going on. And sometimes there's long stretches where they don't say anything. We don't know what's happening. It's like they really need to up their game. Not enough information on screen. I just feel like they're just like uploading these big chunks of coverage without really cleaning it up, without editing, without doing any like post-production. It's pretty fucking shit. I'm just really, really not happy with it. Also, I have to say, anybody listening to this podcast, you know that I am pretty left, pretty liberal, and I also am pretty forward and progressive on certain issues. One of those is COVID, and I know I can already hear your eyes rolling. Oh, don't talk about COVID again, Brad. But I have to, because if you look at the Olympics, they're taking no precautions. Everybody's still pretending like COVID is over, and yet we've had, I think, at least 5 or 6 Olympic-level athletes fucking pass out and fall over from quote-unquote mysterious illnesses. Give me a break, dude. They're all fucking sick with COVID. That one guy who got the bronze medal in track and field, the black guy, I forget what his name is, he fucking passed out at the end of his race, and it's like he had 102 fever. How the hell is he getting cleared to run? How is his coach letting him run? I mean, I get that you spent all this time in your life to get to this point, but like, we should have taken precautions. People should be masking. People should be being very careful, distancing, doing things to protect yourselves. Hand sanitizer isn't going to do it. And this is like crazy. We've seen so many athletes who were supposed to do really well, like way undershoot what they were supposed to do. A lot of people underperforming, like some of the divers belly flopping. That lady who did the air pistol thing, she like passed out at her press conference. When does that ever happen, dude? These are supposed to be the pinnacle of humanity. People in the best shape of their lives. Young people, strong, vibrant, running for fucking miles, running faster, jumping higher, being stronger than anybody else could ever expect to be in their lifetime. And they're fucking falling over sick and they're passing out. They're being wheeled away off in a fucking wheelchair. That lady with the gun said she's going to have to wear oxygen to compete next time. What the fuck, dude? Like, it is COVID all up and down. And anybody that doesn't admit that is just part of the problem. It just drives me fucking crazy that the Olympics Commission has done nothing about this. And people are getting so sick at the fucking Olympics. It's ridiculous. I mean, the Olympics official statement was, well, you know, if we had an Olympics where every condition was perfect, we never have an Olympics. Okay, cool. I get it. But this is like pandemic level sickness. We need to do something more than just hand sanitizer. Okay. Like, it's fucking driving me goddamn crazy. Anyway, last thing I'll mention here, The Walking Dead. The Walking Dead. We used to talk about it a lot on this podcast and also on the GameCritics.com podcast, but it's been a while. My wife and I were fans of the comic book. We read the comic book back before it was a TV series when Robert Kirkman was writing it, at whatever, Skybound, I think came out, or was it Image? I can't remember. Anyway, we read the comic. We were big fans of the comic. When we saw the TV show was coming, we watched it like on the release night, the opening night of that show. We watched it religiously up until, I don't know, season 5 or season 6, wherever it was that a very famous character got killed in a very famous way, and it just really turned our stomachs. It was like way too much. way over the top for a series that was known for like gore and zombie violence and people dying. So it kind of underlines how excessive it was. But my son, who you heard just a few minutes ago, has been reading some of the books and has been curious about it. He's almost 16, and we figure, you know, it's okay if he wants to watch something a little spooky. We're kind of a horror household anyway. So we started watching Walking Dead season 1 just this past week. Hadn't watched it since it was first aired. So we went back to series 1, episode 1 from 15 years ago or something like that? 10, 12, 15 years ago. And I gotta say, it holds up, dude. It's still really, really good. Going back, I mean, I know the part that I don't want to watch again is coming up, and that's a ways off. So I know certain characters are gonna die, and I know what's gonna happen. But even so, performances really good, drama really good, pacing really good. Like it's just really solid. And coming back to it after all this time, it's no surprise that it became as popular as it did. I mean, I think the main series just went off the air like 2-3 years ago, right? Like it ran for like 10, 12, 13 years, something like that. Ridiculous. So anyway, it is really good. If you've never seen The Walking Dead, I mean, I don't know, you're probably sick of hearing about it. I feel like you must have heard about it. It's been in the zeitgeist for so long, and it kind of reignited all things zombie, and it just kicked off a whole bunch of other zombie movies and everything. So I feel like it's been kind of impossible to ignore. But if you're one of those rare people who has not yet kind of interacted with any of the Walking Dead fiction, I will say the comics are good, but I will also say that the TV show is also equally good. I don't know which one is better. I did not read the comic book all the way through because I stopped at the same point that I stopped on the TV show. But I think they're both excellent, and they're slightly different, but both good. So I don't know, man. If you've never seen it, I think it's definitely worth a watch if you are not averse to blood and zombies and people dying pretty often. You know, it was kind of like the Game of Thrones before Game of Thrones was Game of Thrones, right? Because in The Walking Dead, you never knew when someone's going to die. You never knew. And they were not afraid to fucking kill even the popular characters, man. Like there's a couple characters I was really shocked they killed. So yeah, Game of Thrones, but with zombies and no dragons, etc., etc. So good stuff, even after all these years. All right, folks, that is a show. Before the closing music, I would love for you all to leave reviews, share the show on social media, and most important of all, please recommend Video Games to your friends, because nothing beats good old word of mouth. Also, again, if you'd like to support the show and help with the cost of running this podcast and paying for the hosting, that would be amazing. You can do that over at patreon.com/the Video Games podcast. Even $1 would help. And also, if you want to join our Discord, that is now free of charge, as I mentioned. Also, I would love to get your questions and comments. Please hit me up in the Discord, or you can get me directly at sovideogamespodcast@gmail.com, or you can reach me on social media. It's my name, BRADGALLAWAY, all A's, no O's. You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, and Blue Sky. And this is going to do it for episode 401. That's 401. Folks, thank you so much again for joining me here on the Video Games podcast, and I'll see you next week.